Hi, my name is Aaron Serrato, and for today's video, we will be looking at the validity of the Gospels in the Bible. So, for today's topic, the title is The Gospels Are Fact and Not Folklore Today. And for the first point, we will be looking at oral tradition versus oral history. There is a difference. So, for example, early 20th century critics attempted to say that there was no validity to the Gospels due to the fact that it was based on oral tradition. But there is a difference between oral tradition and oral history. Now, we're not saying that Jesus' words were recorded word for word. What we are arguing or debating here is the fact that it's valid due to oral history and oral tradition. Now, to describe that, I want to quote to you a quote from anthropologist and historian Jan Van Sina. And it says like this: the sources of oral historians are reminiscences, hearsay, or eyewitnesses accounts about events and situations which are contemporary, that is, which occurred during the lifetime of the informants. This differs from oral traditions in that oral traditions are no longer contemporary. They have passed from mouth to mouth for a period beyond the lifetime of the informants. So, in other words, the difference between oral tradition and oral history is with oral tradition, it has been passed down from mouth to mouth, but it has been passed down after years or lifetimes later of those events that those people are passing down. Now with oral history, it's still, being mouth to mouth, but it is being told or described within that same timeline or same lifetime of that person. So it makes the eyewitness account a lot more reliable than for it to have happened many years before that person who is telling you what is going on. For example, if you were to tell a group of people or ask a group of students, hey, would you be able to tell me, or give me some eyewitness accounts of what happened 4 decades ago? Depending on their age, most likely if they're young, they won't be able to because they weren't around at that time, right? Maybe they might be able to tell you due to some things that they might research or things like that. But if you were to ask them if they know somebody that was alive during those 4 decades ago, and they would be able to tell you, an eyewitness account, then their eyewitness account will be a lot more reliable than those students who were a lot younger and were not alive during that time. All right. So that is the difference. And that is what we see in the Gospels with Mark. And we believe that it was written 4 decades after, Jesus' public ministry. So that means that most of his eyewitness accounts that he recorded with were most likely still alive to be able to tell him clearly and vividly what happened during those times. All right. The next thing is that skeptics tried to claim that we can't trust their historical because Christians wrote them. In that case, then we wouldn't be able to trust many resources or many sources from other historical figures that we now know about because for most of them, it's the same thing. For example, with Socrates and Mohammed, most of the things that we know about their life today is from accounts based on their own followers. For example, with Julius Caesar, or the same thing. Most of the things that we know about his life today is due to the people that recorded based on whether they were followers of him, whether they were for him or against him. So you see, it is normal that most of the time, most of the people that are interested in a figure, often being the followers, they're the ones who preserve the most useful information about that person. And then it's the same thing with the Gospels. The Gospels, they come from a historiographic apex of ancient biography, while as opposed to Socrates' accounts, biography was just barely starting to take shape during his lifetime. So you see? Now, the other thing is that when were the Gospels written and by whom? So, for example, none of the Gospels mention the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, and Jesus prophesied about it in each of the three synoptic Gospels. So also, such an obvious fulfillment would have been recorded. This suggests that the Gospels of at least Matthew, Mark, and Luke were written before 70 AD. And the book of Acts as well does not include the destruction of the temple, nor Nero's persecution of the Christians, which happened around 64 AD, nor does it mention the deaths of James, Paul, and Peter, suggesting that also the book of Acts was written before 70 AD. So, in conclusion, we can say that the Gospels have validity based on oral history and that we can trace it back based on real historical events that occurred around the same time, such as what we just mentioned, the destruction of the temple, Nero's persecution, and the deaths of those apostles, James, Paul, and Peter. So I hope this video was informational to you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you've come out of this learning something new, something different, and having more of a stronger faith in believing that, yes, the Gospels do have validity based on oral history, based on actual times and events, and based on eyewitness accounts.